Hi, good evening, everybody. I am Natural Mystic. I am an author of three books, co-authored two, and I have just published my own solo publication. Here it is there. So this is the book cover. Um, I've always been interested in writing. I like vocabulary and that sort of thing. So I've always played around with poetry, spoken word, and this was something that I've always been meaning to do as part of the legacy, as in the Natural Mystic legacy. Um, the book itself has taken a couple of years to actually come to fruition. I started thinking about it or manifested it in 2020 while we was on lockdown. I spoke to a few people about what the content would be like, and they seemed quite excited, curious. So I started in 2020. I put it away for a really long time, just purely because the subject matter was quite sensitive. I hadn't quite healed myself, and there were still some things from my past that were bothering me. Since then, I've come a long way. Like I said, I co-authored two books, and then I decided to put myself into therapy last year. And throughout that process of speaking to my therapist and realizing that I'd actually come quite a lot further in my healing journey than what I'd thought. So that was then sort of the reactivation, should I say, and the motivation to actually get this book kind of more so started and then completed. So I made a promise to myself last year, 2023, that by sort of April, May time of 2024, the book could be done. And once I'd made that promise to myself, I didn't want to let myself down or let anybody else down because I was still being asked, where's the book? Where's the book? So I completed it May of this year, 2024, went into publication, spoken with my publisher, my proofreader, and finally got it out and about on Amazon currently at the moment. It will be available in other bookstores such as Waterstone and a few independent bookstores as well. It's also going to be available on audio book as well in ebook format. So there's a few things coming, a few things still happening, a few things sort of still in the pipeline that are sort of manifesting and coming to fruition there as well. So yes, July of this year, I became a published author. I went with a publisher who knew me way before the book itself, and it was a pleasure to work with her and her company. I didn't do much editing because I didn't want my actual vernacular or the era that I'm from in Northwest London to be edited out. So there are parts of the book that are still sort of in slang or in that 90s kind of era that are, that I lived in this part of the book. So this is book one of three. I'll just hold it up again for you all. So this one is about body count. And the small print there, I won't read it, but I'm sure you can pick it up. There we go. All right. So it's kind of like a bedroom kind of boudoir, a bit like other books that are out there, that done really, really well. But this one is definitely like what it says on the title. So we know that body count or that terminology has been ringing around on social media and different podcasts and different forms of people, men and women, have been speaking about, like, the number of partners somebody's had or whether that lowers their value or increases their value. And so all of these terms started coming about. And this book, because like I said, has been in my mind since before all of these conversations started taking place. And then it started to get kind of ramped up more so on social media, I would say, with the red pill, blue pill kind of conversation that men were having. And throughout the process, I kind of felt judged, maybe a little bit criticized. It's that sort of thing. If the cap fits, do you wear it type thing? And I thought, well, no, actually, I'm not going to make any excuses for what it is that I've done in my past. It doesn't determine who I am now. There are loads of reasons as to why I would say body count does matter to some, not everybody. And it just proved to me that I'm in a place where I can take accountability and responsibility for my actions from being an early teen or even preteen, if you want to put it there, all the way through my adult life. And yeah, it was kind of difficult, like I said in the beginning, to start writing, but then it kind of just flowed. I felt myself healing, kind of laughing, and going through lots of different thought processes. So the delay in publishing it was purely because I didn't want certain family members to read it, type thing. I hadn't really spoken to them about some of the stuff that I'd been through. And then I finally kind of just gone, do you know what? If they read it, they read it. It is what it is. So there is, I would say it's 100% true from my perspective in the book. I haven't spoken to any of the guys that are actually in the book or made them aware. So I've changed their names, I may have changed, certain locations to try and protect them. So this isn't about blaming anybody. This isn't about pointing fingers at anybody else. It's just a very small segment of my life that I've decided to put in a book or in writing. So book 2 is also going to be kind of a continuation of book 1. And then book 3 is kind of like the conclusion, should we say, or the things I've learned, or the things that the process of writing these books has helped me change. And to be able to take it to do talks with younger women, to try and avoid some of the pitfalls or try and avoid some of the mistakes that I would say that I've made, or some of the decisions that I've made and choices that I made that weren't probably in my best interest. So it's kind of a full circle. It gives you a bit of backstory, a bit of the process of when I realized things weren't going well or when things needed to change, and then conclusive, like I said, with what I've learned from those experiences and how I can potentially guide, I wouldn't say women predominantly or younger girls predominantly, but also in how men think about women or how they treat women, and then the aftermath of what's left after a relationship breakdown, or when you've had, sort of an intimate interaction with the opposite sex type thing. So yeah, it's one of those ones where it's going to hopefully open up a bit more of an honest dialogue. And like I said, it's not to judge, it's not to criticize, it's not to belittle or to diminish anybody's experiences, especially my own, but more so to just, yeah, have that honest conversation with myself and with others. So that's where I am with the book itself. There is merchandise that will be coming along as well, just to try and soften the blow, should we say. There's a bit of humor in there as well. So there are elements of the book that some people may find triggering. It may kind of tap into what you might say their PTSD, or they have had similar experiences. And it's not to sort of stir up those types of emotions, but it is to actually help people think a bit differently, perhaps, or see things from a slightly different perspective, not just from my sort of experiences, but from their own experiences. There is also a hard copy of the book, and this is a limited edition. As you can see, oh, there it is, sorry. As you can see, there's limited edition. And within this one, there are some probing questions, I would say, or some prompts to start to enable people to have those conversations, not just with your friends and family, but maybe with your partner or your spouse. It's supposed to be light-hearted, but in a way, sometimes we don't always know how to put certain questions across, or, some people may say that the question's too direct, and it makes them feel uncomfortable in answering it. So there's just a few hints and tips in the back of this particular limited edition book, which would help, I suppose, like I said, start the conversation, and for people to be open and honest and start trusting their partner a bit more, or being able to say stuff that maybe you wouldn't normally say or converse about. I find that a lot of people, when they're dating and that sort of thing, you have kind of these interview questions that you perhaps put forward, and then when you move into the more seriousness or exclusivity, in that relationship, kind of conversation changes slightly. You don't want to seem as if, like I said, you're interrogating the person that you're potentially, falling in love with or have feelings for or care for. So that's the main purpose for me having the limited edition with the extra questions, but just writing the book in general. Like I said, it was really a healing process. I didn't find it um, as difficult as I thought it would once I'd overcome some of the feelings or some of the thoughts. And like I said, therapy was a huge part of me not being such a harsh critic of myself or feeling as if I'm not worthy and that sort of thing. And then also, not having children, there were times that I didn't feel like a complete woman in that sense. I hadn't had that experience to be able to share that with, that experience with friends and family who do have children. So there were a lot of things going through my mind. So the books themselves do delve into that. Book one is probably just a bit of a candid tell all, a little bit graphic in areas. So yeah, I would say to read it with caution, but I wanted it to be a page turner. I wanted it to be something that people would be curious to see what happens next and what happens next. So feedback that I've had so far is exactly what it is that I was looking for. Definitely a page turner. Definitely, I couldn't wait to read the next chapter. I've had people question me why the chapters are titled certain things, but it all relates um, to the people that I'm speaking about in the book. It just, there were sections in it where I even questioned my own sexuality, for example. So yeah, there is a little bit of everything for everybody, I would say. There is an 18 plus, 18 plus on there, just purely because, yeah, like I said, it is graphic, it is candid. It's probably a conversation that parents may want to have with their children, but I wouldn't really want anyone under the age of 18 to kind of just pick it up and start reading it. Um, and then I was also worried about what people would think once they'd read it, or what they'd think of me, or how they would speak to me. And what I've kind of said to everybody who has read it is that, treat me the same as what you would normally treat me. And if you do have questions, ask. Quite frankly, I wouldn't have put this type of information out there if I wasn't prepared, um, for people to sort of maybe look at me with a bit of a side eye, or to look at me and kind of not be nervous, but kind of, there are bits about, I want to know more, I want to know more. So yeah, it is, like I said, it's been an interesting roller coaster of a journey to actually get the book out there. And now that it's out there, I'm actually just enjoying the ride. Um, I really do hope that, you all kind of, yeah, engage with me, interact with me on my various different social media platforms. As you can see, Natural Mystic is my author name. Natural Mystic is what I use on social media. So that's Instagram, TikTok, and you can also find me on Facebook. I do have other platforms that I'm utilizing as well. I have a podcast out there, and that is on varying platforms at the moment, such as Spotify, SoundCloud, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm in the process of recording the audiobook, and that's quite interesting because I've actually spoken to a few people about the audiobook, and they've unanimously voted that I should be the one to actually read it. Just purely because, again, tone of voice, the accent, the way the book is written, and I just really want everything to be authentically me. So yes, it's not hard work, but there's a lot of work involved, and I'm kind of just looking forward to getting in the studio and just kind of zoning in and getting it done in that respect. So yeah, there are different formats, and I'm trying to reach, like I said, a wide demographic. So not just people who love to read, but people who now also, really do like listening to an audiobook, and yeah, working on my tone of voice, working on the pace, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm really enjoying all the things that it's bringing. I will be going out and, like I said, just going into some schools to come and speak about, intimacy, relationships, STIs, prevention, and all this type of stuff. And I've recently been to my local college and spoken to some of the students there. and the feedback I've had from them has been absolutely amazing. Just things like, thank you for being honest, you're cool. And I've never ever thought of being at this age that somebody would like think, relate to me like I'm cool in that sense, or use that type of wordage. So yeah, I'm just in a really good space at the moment. And what I've realized is that young men or boys have approached me to actually ask me about, how they speak to girls or how they treat girls and that sort of thing. So like I said, it's not just solely based just on women or helping women. It's also to kind of help young guys and men in general, how they interact with the opposite sex or even the same sex. So just because I've written it from a heterosexual perspective, it doesn't mean it's not applicable to all, and I don't want to be excluding everybody. I think everybody needs to be included in the conversation more so than anything else. So yeah,
Can you
hopefully,
just start to wrap it up, please?
yeah. So hopefully, you've got a little bit of my essence and what the book is about. And yeah, if you do read it, feel free to approach. And book 2 and 3 will be out in the next year and the year after. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. I am Natural Mystic, and I am the author of Body Count.